cover till at least 50 pages or page number 50. We are right now at 33. Like the PDF has to be around 100 pages or so, so 60 more to go. Anyways, getting back. Now we will be previously we have discussed the Nagara style of North Indian temples. Now we will be discussing South Indian, the Dravidian temple style. Green, yellow, red. Okay, I can see the circumambulation here. The layout of southern style temples typically share the following characteristics: wall compound, access through large gateways. Unique to the South Indian style, temple compounds are typically encircled by high walls, blue highlight with entrances through large gateways upon called gopurams. This is called a gopuram. There's a large entrance. Pink highlight, this is gopuram. These gateways are so massive that they sometimes dwarf the enclosed temple, while North Indian Hindu empires quickly fell to Islamic invaders. Those of South India continued to do battle. These walls likely served to protect their sacred structures. They further symbolized a break between the temporal world outside and the sacred eternal precinct of the gods inside. Multiple stairway entrance. There are often three stairways that afford entrance into the temple from east, north, south. Alright. Here, I believe. Sides of the Ardha Mandapa, green. Okay, this is the Ardha Mandapa. This compares versus the northern temple single stairway on the Ardha Mandapa east side. Core structure remains the same. The progression of the rooms follows the same pattern as in the north. The mandapa is shown in yellow, highlights the sanctuary in the red, highlights sanctuary. Here's the mandapa. However, unlike the northern style, there are no balconies or cruciform interiors, vast hypostyle halls. Later in the southern style development, the temple mandapas were expanded in size and filled with as many as 1000 pillars. This architectural practice was driven by increasingly elaborate temple rituals. Look at this one. This is the enormous Gopuram entrance, the Meenakshi temple at Madurai. Look at this one. This is a southern style temple. This is the Dharma Raja Ratha at Mahabalipuram. This looks like a hybrid form, but okay. The pyramidal towers. In contrast to curvilinear profile of the North Indian temple towers, the southern style's tower is pyramidal, consisting of a series of diminishing stories. This is perhaps the most easily identifiable feature of the southern style temple, the horizontal lines created by the diminishing story contrast with northern style strong vertical lines. This affords to southern temple a less soaring, more grounded overall appearance. The tower is comprised of the following elements: eaves. Absent in northern style, the south eaves in blue highlight. These are eaves. Project out ever so slightly from the face of the facade, providing some protection from the elements of the devotees as they circumambulate the temple. Parapet. Parapets are another key defining elements of the southern style, resting directly on the top of the eave. The southern temple's parapet, a low wall along the edge of each successive stories, is punctuated by a series of miniature curved roofs forms red highlight in figure 14. These curved roofs form might have been inspired by Buddhist Vihara monastery antecedents. If so, they recreate the cells around a square room which Buddhist monks were allowed to sleep. Architecturally, parapets further emphasize the horizontal lines of the tower design. The crown. It's the crown. A similar curved roof form resembling a domed kiosk, typically square or octagonal in plan, was used to crown the Vimana Tower over the sanctuary. Green highlight. These domed kiosks assume the same position as the north ribboned fruits and pot finales. Monolithic stone wall window screen at Madurai. Decorative elements. Decoration is a particular focus in the south, and it is here that it reaches its most ornate forms. The Chaitya arch, the horseshoe shaped Chaitya arch, is similarly pervasive in southern decorative repertory. It was used to decorate both the temple present in Vimana, crown, eaves, and parapets, and massive gopurams that grant access into the temple compound, serving as the topping element. A modeled platform supports the temple. The platform on which the temple sits exhibits a strong projection molding. Monolithic stone screens. Monolithic stone screens, the jali, consisting of intricate lattice work, designs, covers, windows, providing filtered interior light. Plastered, demarched undulation. The base walls of the temples are divided into alternating projecting and receding bays, each of which was divided by the pairs of pilasters. These bays, the primary location for sculptures, introduce even more dynamic wall surfaces than those of North India. Undulating wall surface. Ornate columns. Columns hold a special place in the decorative hierarchy of southern temples. They are masterpieces and ranks as some of the most impressive sculptural works of the Hindu temple. The grandest of these columns, all carved from single blocks of stone, assume two basic forms: a thick structural column paired with thinner, more decorative pillars. A thick structural column paired with dynamic sculptures, often depicting scenes that include a rearing horse or lion. And this is a rearing horse is a monolithic column. Khajuraho's temple. Now we are starting up. The Chandela Empire. Khajuraho's temples were built by Hindu Chandela Empire, successor of Pratihara Empire. The Chandelas ruled parts of north central India from 905 to 1308. All of the city's temples were built between 900 and 1150, with the greatest concentration of temple construction from 950 to 1050, corresponding to the high point of the empires. Of the over 85 temples that were believed to have been constructed, only 24 remained. Khajuraho was the cultural capital of the Chandelas. The political capital was nearby in Kalinjar, 40 kilometers east. When the cultural capital was relocated to Mahoba, 40 kilometers north, probably early in the 13th century, Khajuraho was abandoned. Building material. While Khajuraho's temples sit on granite platform, they are built chiefly of the local sandstone. The softness of the sandstone enabled the detailed sculptural works and decorative details for which the site is known, unique for its survival. Islamic invasions to the Indian territory began to gain momentum in the 11th and the 12th centuries under the leadership of Ghurid, the first of the Islamic slave dynasties. In 1206, Ghurid set the capital in Delhi, a strategically positioned trading city that controlled a key pass through the Himalayas and had convenient access to the rest of the Indian mainland along the Gangas and the Yamuna River. With that, the first centralized Islamic kingdom in India, the Delhi Sultanate, was formed. As part of their strategy to secure control of North India, Islamic forces sought to destroy The native Hindu inhabitants, cultural foundation, the center of which was their temple, and in this initiative they were quite successful. Under destruction was fate of most North Indians. Hindu temples viewed from the perspective the survival of its temples make Khajuraho a national Hindu treasure. So why did Khajuraho temple survive? Although the reason for the survival is unknown for sure, perhaps it is attributable to the fact that the Chandela Empire was in decline and Khajuraho was likely in the process of being abandoned at that time, that Islamic invasions were just beginning. Khajuraho, an abandoned cultural capital of a weakened empire, might not have drawn the attention of Islamic invaders set upon eradicating the most important Hindu religious monuments. The pinnacle of the North Indian temple style. The temples of Khajuraho are culmination of Northern temple style. The section highlights three architectural advancements that were undertaken to make them unique and earn them their unrivaled reputation. Prototype, the temples of Odisha. The earliest extent of the examples of the North Indian temple style are in Bhubaneswar, located in the state of Odisha. The city sits on India's east coast, approximately 1000 kilometers southeast of Khajuraho. Odisha's impressive temples, the greatest concentration of which were built between the late 6th century and the late 13th century, likely served as inspiration for those of Khajuraho. That said, in order to provide the proper context for Khajuraho's advancement in temple buildings, this review necessarily considers how its temple deviate from those in Odisha. And advancement 1, increased vertical emphasis. At Khajuraho, architects employed a number of enhancements to emphasize temple's verticality and upward movement. Look this. What momentum Kandarya Mahadev. Roofline. Khajuraho's most advanced temple, Kandarya Mahadev, achieves maximum vertical impact by emphasizing the shape of its curvilinear curvilinear mandapa roofs. The curvilinear form of the primary tower is repeated in the roofs of the mandapa, Mahamandapa, Mandapa, Ardha Mandapa. See green highlights. Right. This compares versus temples in Odisha, in which the Vimana tower above the sanctuary is the only strongly vertical component. The mandapa's roof maintains a tiered pyramid shape with strong horizontal molding that detract from its overall upward thrust. Gradual rise. Further, the mandapa create smooth rise from the entranceway east end to dramatic summit over the sanctuary western end. Clinging towers. The sides of the primary tower or sanctum are covered with smaller tower-like forms, yellow highlights, further accentuating the vertical monument and creating a more dynamic three-dimensional surface, with one notable exception. Rajrani Temple in Bhubaneswar. This practice was not pursued in Odisha. This is the Mukteshwar Temple, 10th century, Odisha. This evolving shape of the temple's roofline can be clearly traced within the confines of Khajuraho's western group. The transformation begins at Lakshmana, at which the Odishan temple precedent is still evident. The roofline undergoes modification at Vishwanatha, Chitragupta, and Devi Jagadambi, and finally it emerges in its ultimate expression at Kandarya Mahadev. The specifics of this transformation will be discussed in the feature temple profiles that follow in subsequent sections. Increased number of wall projections. Khajuraho architects also took another major step forward in their attempts to stress the vertical axis. The projection on each side of the temple's tower increased to 7, up from maximum of 5 in Odisha. The increased number of projection creates an even greater number of vertical lines moving from ground to the tower summit. Figure 20 has illustration of projections. This one. On towers from Khajuraho in Odisha, below an actual photo of these towers with the corresponding projections highlighted. Khajuraho, Odisha is almost square shaped. This looks like a diamond shape. Towers world projection Khajuraho left versus Odisha. The platform, and finally, in the yet another move towards greater verticality, Khajuraho's temples were placed on broad platforms while Odisha temples sat directly on the ground. Advancement 2, Unified Integrated Interior. The layout of Khajuraho's temples was pioneering in the integrated what had earlier been discrete structures into unified whole. Compared to Odissan prototype, in Odisha the temple structure consists of discrete rooms connected together through a long passage. In the case of Brahmeshwara temple, built in 1060, a sanctuary red. This one was simply fused with mandapa yellow. In Khajuraho, however, these discrete units give way to a single integrated whole. This transformation happened for the first time in the design of Lakshmana. At Lakshmana, the sanctuary and mandapa had been joined together into a single structure. Advancement 3, more open interior space. Khajuraho temples are significantly more open than those of Odisha, providing more air and light into their interiors. Balconies consistent with other temples of the Western group. Lakshmana has balconies. Light blue. An open interior of the temple admits significantly more light compared with the closed arrangement of Odissan temples. Ambulatory, unlike Odissan temples, the Khajuraho's temples introduced an ambulatory green for circumambulation around the sanctuary. Compare this with the shrine only layout of an Odissan temple. Columns in interior. Unlike Odisha's temples, which are astlier, use no column, Khajuraho's temple further opened up their interiors by using columns instead of solid walls. Lakshmana Khajuraho. Columns, reliefs and sculptures. In Odisha, Khajuraho's exterior decoration has an overall quality with nearly every inch of surface area filled with carved reliefs and sculptures. Exterior panel. Khajuraho's sculptural style. The figuration employed in Khajuraho temple relief and sculptures closely resemble that of the Gupta Empire, 320 to 550 CE. As such, it represents a more mature, confident style unrivaled in the Indian tradition. That said, figures have the following stylistic characteristics: intense spirituality to images in seeking to convey the expression of divine or the divinely inspired artist employed exaggerated and not naturalistic figuration. The body appears to be expanded or bloated by what has been termed sacred breath, prana, creating a less natural form characterized by round limbs, no muscle definition. This defining element, pervasive in Khajuraho, became unique feature of Indian art throughout the age. It is also worth pointing out that this is most likely an indigenous rather than Greek inspired sculptural feature, in that it mirrors earlier Yakshi sculptural work and predate Greek influence. Beginning in 3rd century BC, these Yakshi can still be seen at famous Great Stupa in Sanchi. A great level of movement. Painted figures are dynamic, their movement seemingly infused with musical quality. They assume action, implying standing positions, wear flowing garments, and execute expressive hand motions. This affords temple exterior a pulsing, flowing quality. S curved body positions. Consistent with the dynamism, figures typically stand in an S-shaped body posture called Tribhanga, also known as three bends. The head tilts, the torso reverses the direction, and then the lower extremities reverse it again, mirroring the same angle at the head. In many respects, Tribhanga resembles a more accentuated um, on trap pose too, and it is possible the Tribhanga posture was inspired by the art of the Bactrian kingdom, an ancient Greek civilization that was located in the modern day Afghanistan and prospered in the 3rd and the 2nd century BCE. Deities with multiple arms. Assigning multiple arms to figures was another device used to convey the expressions of otherworldly and divine. The hand of each arm typically holds an item associated with a specific deity, thereby facilitating idealized identification. Um, Idealized facial features. The eyes, in particular, are stylized and made to look larger and more penetrating than human forms. Decorations. Figures are highly decorated with jewelry items such as headdress, armbands, necklace, earring. Clothing is sheer and seemingly transparent, revealing the underlying shape of the body. Erotic poses. Pronouns, then, in the Western sculptural tradition. This is explored in the next section entitled Erotic Reliefs, History and Meaning. Types of carved figures, decoration. The walls at Khajuraho's temples are adorned with three basic types of carved figurative decorations: deep relief panels in the round sculpture, medium relief friezes. Three registers of sculptural panel junction, mandapa and sanctuary, Khajuraho. Khajuraho's most prominent relief reside in the horizontal registers in height that run around the periphery of the temple. They are positioned midway up the walls of temples in prime viewing position. Red. The deep near the three-dimensional panels were carved separately, then inserted into place on the wall of the temple. In fact, the joints among the individual panel are clearly visible. These horizontal registers serve to balance the strong vertical lines of the rest of the structure, while the sculptures themselves expound a spiritual worldview discussed in the next section. Khajuraho's earlier temples employed two registers of relief, largely consistent with Orisian prototype. However, later temples increased the number of three registers. Type 2 in the round sculpture. The round sculptures, the best of which of the female deities, apsaras and rearing lions, are positioned at select highly visible locations, usually on angled brackets throughout the temples. Look at this one in round exterior sculptural decoration, Khajuraho. Type 3, medium bas relief friezes. Simpler medium depth bas reliefs are confined to smaller and more constricted areas, serving to fill in the spaces and complete the all over decoration aesthetic. Medium bas relief friezes. Erotic reliefs, history and meaning. We'll just do a little bit of it. Yeah. While Khajuraho's carved decoration maintains many elements of the traditional Puranic Hindu belief system, it is also infused with tantric elements that impart a distinct erotic quality. Erotic figures, exteriorly, panel Khajuraho. Tantra origin and influence. Tantra began as a rebellious offshoot from Hinduism in the 1st and the 2nd century CE and gained greater acceptance during the Gupta period 320 to 550. However, it garnered greater momentum under the auspice of the powerful Pala Empire 750 to 1174 that embraced Tantric Buddhism as its state religion. Given the proximity of the Pala Empire to the Chandela Empire, the Pala Empire was based on the modern day city of Patna, 600 to 700 east of Khajuraho. It is not unreasonable to believe that the Chandelas were influenced by the tantric beliefs of their influential neighbors. It is important to point out that the presence of Tantra inspired erotic sculptures is not confined to Khajuraho's temples. Tantric beliefs were widespread throughout India, particularly in neighboring Odisha. unnecessarily influenced temple decoration throughout the subcontinent. However, what makes Khajuraho's erotic panels unique is their particularly graphic nature and primary position they were afforded in the temple walls. Alright. Erotic figures on the exterior panel of Khajuraho. Tantric beliefs. A brief review of a fundamental tenet of Hinduism, non duality, will provide insight into the meaning of Khajuraho's erotic reliefs. Non duality explained. The concept of unity in opposition is a fundamental tenet of Hinduism. The Hindu faith possesses that duality implicit in pairs of opposite. Example, good versus bad, beautiful versus ugly, living versus dead, divine versus profane, male versus female. That appears to ground our daily existence is merely illusion. When believers cast aside this illusion and realize that everything is of one essence, non duality, they can achieve enlightenment. The critical part of the process is that the believers realizes their own divinity, that one is all. Tantric way, a physical part to unity. While Tantra shares the belief in non duality with Hinduism, it advocates an altogether different path to achieving this insight. While enlightenment is realized through intellectual or emotional, devotional pathways in other forms of Hinduism, enlightenment in Tantra is achieved at least in part through physical act of sex. Under Tantra, the duality of masculine and feminine creates tensions that is only resolved with sexual action, union. Further, it is believed that the rupture of enlightenment is most closely approximated by the rupture of sexual union. In union, both are the one and each in both. By adding the physical element to its religious practice, Tantra propounds to offer an accelerated path to enlightenment. Under the conventional Hinduism, devotees likely require many lifetimes via the cycle of samsara or cyclical birth, rebirth in order to achieve enlightenment. Under Tantra, however, the devotee has potential to achieve enlightenment in a single lifetime. This acceleration is achieved through the performance of sexual act, wherein it is believed one can better approach the divine. So basically ये कह रहे हैं कि हिंदू बिलीफ ये कहता है that it's talking about duality, like two oppositional forces are there, and once you start seeing them as illusion and you realize that there's opposition and unity and everything is non-dual within you, um, then you achieve enlightenment. You let go of those dualities and found the divine in your own self. While Tantra is an offshoot of Hinduism that came off as a rebellion, um, right, where were we exactly? Yeah. So, yeah, we're talking about the Tantra. Let's say is like there are two oppositional forces, male, female, and enlightenment can only be achieved through um, union, which is through sexual acts, and you can like achieve enlightenment through that. All right, makes sense. And like a cycle of rebirth, samsara is another way which will take time, and this doesn't. The temple decoration as pathway to enlightenment. Viewed from this perspective, Khajuraho's temple decoration can be seen as an instrument of showcasing the path to enlightenment. The erotic figure depicted on the exteriors of the temple are not deities who necessarily already possess enlightened spirits, but rather humans. They engage in tantric practices in order to move closer to the divine. And symbolically, the erotic sculptures, interior and exterior, are only evident on a specific portion of the temple, the junction between mandapa and sanctuary. At the architectural junction, the human and the divine meet, both physically in the confines of the temple, where the divinity is manifest in the sanctuary, and symbolically in the rupture achieved through the joining of man and woman depicted in these sculptures. The confined usage of erotic reliefs to the junction of mandapa and sanctuary differs from the Odisha, perhaps the and represents a refinement of the earlier practices. In Odisha, while often not as graphic, erotic decoration is even more pervasive, present in all areas of exterior decorations with greatest concentrations on walls of the sanctuary itself. Erotic figures in the exterior relief panels is Khajuraho. Tours of the Western group. This is the Lakshmana temple. This is Vishwanatha temple, Chitragupta, Devi Jagadamba, Kandarya Mahadev. So there are like 5 temples. Maps of temples, Western group of Khajuraho. Khajuraho's most impressive temples resides in the Western group. In the section that follows, we profile our picks for the Western group's 5 most important temples. They present in chronological order based on their dates of construction: Lakshmana, Vishwanatha, Chitragupta, Devi Jagadamba, Kandarya, Mahadev. An extra, we profile Chatur Bhuj, our favorite temple in the southern group. We recommend visiting at sunset. This is the satellite view of the temples. Western Khajuraho, Google Maps. This is the Lakshman temple. The first temple that you encounter upon entering the Western group is also its oldest. Lakshman temple is groundbreaking structure, pioneering many features that would come to define the Khajuraho style, exploring its exterior and interior decoration, still in excellent condition, is in an ideal way to begin your visit at Khajuraho. This is constructed from 930 to 950. Resident deities Vishnu. This is the Lakshmana temple at Khajuraho. The 5 temple platform. This is an excellent example of the 5 temple platform arrangement. Rather than a single temple sitting atop an elevated platform. The large central temple is surrounded by 4 small shrines that sit at the corners. The 2 shrines in the rear point towards the front of the platform. The 2 at the front point towards its center. Visitors enter the temple from the east, passing through the Ardha Mandapa entranceway. A Mandapa blue highlights and a larger Maha Mandapa yellow, en route to the sanctuary red highlights. There are 5 projecting balconies, light blue highlighting an ambulatory pink highlight ground. Around the sanctuary, as discussed, the introduction section, pinnacle of North Indian temple style. Lakshmana marked as a major shift in the temple design. Here, for the first time, the sanctuary and the Mahamandapa were mused into an integrated unit. In the earlier temple, they remained largely discrete elements connected through a narrow passageway. As a typical North Indian style, the towers are topped by ribbon fruits, amlakas, and pot finales floor plan. Vertical emphasis. Lakshmana represents the first attempt to break from the Odisha temple precedent and introduces a more vertically oriented temple style. To further emphasize the verticality of the tower over the sanctuary, Lakshmana introduces smaller decorative towers that cling to its side. Yellow. This was an important step. These clinging towers will grow in number in subsequent temples. This one. Nevertheless, Lakshmana remained anchored in earlier Odishan temple precedent. The roofs over its mandapa still exhibit a tiered pyramidal shape. Read their prominent horizontal molding weigh on the overall impression of verticality. Lakshmana temple, Khajuraho. Exterior decoration. A bus relief frees the temple platform location marked with red highlight depicting a grand procession of dancers, warriors, and most notably elephants all assume dynamic pose. On base of the temple set upon the center of the projecting balconies there are miniature niches with deity sculpture inside location marked with blue. The depiction of Ganesha, the son of the Shiva and Parvati, who acts as removes of obstacles on the south side, is in high state of preservation. Higher up is the temple wall. There are two registers of the large 2.5 to 3 feet high panels, location marked with yellow highlights. They display deep bas relief sculptures. The round limbed figures are well rendered and extremely naturalistic in pose. At the junction of the Mahamandapa and sanctuary, the meeting point of the humans and the divine, respectively, depictions in these panels take on erotic character. This is one of the first temples at Khajuraho to employ erotic reliefs. Relief sculpture location Lakshmana. Interior columns lining the central passageway of the Mahamandapa, octagonal at their base and round at their tops, support magnificent capitals that hold the following sculptural figures: miniature dwarways, miniature dwarways stand with armed raised, apparently straining to support the weight of the ceiling above. Maidens on the large angled brackets, expertly carved maidens stand beneath the trees. Dwarf supports the ceiling Lakshmana Khajuraho. In the front entrance to the sanctuary is a half circle altar, green highlight, symbolizing the meeting point of the human circle and the deity square. Above the entrance is a relief frieze depicting the 9 Navagraha, yellow highlight. These cosmic influences typically sit at the entrance to the sanctuaries and help devotees connect with the preceding deity. The sanctuary houses a three-headed image of Vishnu. He stands with straight legs and perfectly erect in Sarnabhanga. We enter the sanctuary from Mahamandapa, Lakshmana Khajuraho. Vishnu icon sculpture Lakshmana Khajuraho. Vishwanatha. A Lakshmana look alike in many respects, Vishwanatha has even more profuse decoration. Don't forget to check out the Nandi Pavilion. 1002, Shiva is the resident, Vishwanatha. Plan Vishwanath Khajuraho. An open pavilion housing a sculpture of Nandi bull sits immediately east of the entrance as bull serves as the Shiva's transport. Its position in front of the temple marks it as Shiva dedication. Vishwanath also has a 5 temple platform, however, of the original 4 small corner shrines at the periphery of the temple platform. Only 2 remain. The floor plan of the temple itself is virtually identical to that one of the Lakshmana. Design of the features of Vishwanath is yellow, this is blue. New exterior decorative arrangements. While the floor plan is unchanged from Lakshmana, there are some noteworthy modifications in the arrangement of decorations on the temple exterior. The niches on the base of the temple and the centers of the projecting balconies are smaller and double stacked. See blue highlights. The number of registers of the large relief panels increased from 2 to 3, marking the first deviation from Odishan temple precedent. See yellow, red. Vertical emphasis Vishwanath Khajuraho. Vishwanath show a clear step forward from Lakshman in terms of emphasizing its verticality. Vishwanath shows a clear step forward from Lakshman in terms of emphasizing its verticality. The decorative replica towers that cling to the sides of the primary Vimana tower increase in number. There is smooth rise from roof over the entrance hall or the mandapa to top of the primary Vimana tower over the sanctuary. However, despite these advances, the roof over the mandapa remain pyramidal with a prominent horizontal molding that detract from the upward thrust. This is consistent with the Odishan prototype and Lakshmana before it. The shrine entrance features elaborate relief carvings. The presiding deity housed in the sanctuary Shiva is represented in the form of phallus-shaped linga. It sits atop a square vagina-like base called yoni, symbolizing Shakti, that is feminine creative power. The unsculpted nature of the stone linga represents divine consciousness beyond form and universal unity in the figure of Shiva. This one, Shiva Sanctuary, Vishwanath. Chitragupta. Uh, Chitragupta was built with a more compact arrangement like earlier temple. While the exterior decoration is relatively poor condition, we encourage you to enter and explore the interior, which has high quality reliefs and an impressive deity image in the sanctuary, constructed 1000 to 1025. Deity Surya, sun god, incorporating aspect of both Vishnu and Shiva. Chitragupta Khajuraho, look at this is more compact. Layout. Chitragupta's floor plan is simplified as compared to the earlier Lakshmana and Vishwanath. Double mandapa and Mahamandapa arrangement was abandoned in favor of a single mandapa that affords access to the sanctuary. There are only two projecting balconies reduced from 5 Lakshmana and Vishwanatha. The project from the sides of the mandapa, 3 balconies that project from the sanctuaries of the 2 earlier temples were eliminated as Vishwanatha. The niches of the base of the temple on the centers of the projecting balconies are smaller and double stacked. Vertical emphasis. Despite its simpler layout, Chitragupta plays an important role in the evolution of Khajuraho temple's increasingly vertical style. For the first time, the shape of the mandapa roofs was modified to closely resemble the curvilinear profile of the primary tower over the sanctuary, thereby affording the temple greater cohesion and upward momentum. In the final break, the pyramidal shape of the Odishan mandapa. Exterior decoration. Surya. Saranbhanga, his stiffness is accentuated by Tribhanga, swaying figures that stand to its side. Approximately a sun disk sits directly behind its head. Surya image, Sanctuary Chitragupta Khajuraho. Devi Jagdamba. This one was dedicated Chitragupta Surya, the sun god, incorporating aspects of both Vishnu and Shiva. We're just going to read little till here only, and then we'll start. Devi Jagdamba makes for a great visit. Its exterior reliefs are still in good condition, and since the scale of the temple is relatively smaller, you can have much closer range. 1000 to 1025. Vishnu is the deity. Devi Jagdamba, Khajuraho, Kandariya Mahadev. It resembles Chitragupta, executed approximately the same time in the 2 aspects. Simplified floor plan. 2 projecting balconies. A linear mandapa roofs. While the towers over its sanctuary and mandapa are in low state of preservation, Devi Jagdamba 2 registers of the sculptural panel are of superior quality and good condition. They are worth exploring as holds some of the Khajuraho's best reliefs, interior decoration. The decoration of the temple ceiling is of high quality. The image of the sanctuary, however, is of Parvati and dates back from the later period. This is the most important and the biggest, I believe. We can do it in the next video.